Welcome back to the Grizzly Brothers podcast. We got a fun discussion today with Mr. Mike Costello from HOWL for Wildlife. Thanks for meeting us here.
Yeah.
Shooting this. We got a lot to talk about for sure.
This is the best reason to come to Vacaville. It's like 2 years in a row. I'm down.
Yeah.
You got to make this an annual trip, if not more often than that.
Has it been a year since we?
I think so. I feel like it was about a year ago. Yeah. Maybe two. I don't know. Last year was a blur.
Yeah, it was.
In a big way. There's a lot going on.
Well, I feel like since our last conversation, HOWL went from this big to this big. I feel like you guys have kind of blown up in the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have. I mean, last year was a big year for us, primarily because we just inserted ourselves into the Colorado issue, and we adopted it as much as to be our own as we could. Partnered heavily with organizations like Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management locally there. But we took it upon ourselves to nationalize the issue, and that was the attempt to ban mountain lion and bobcat hunting in Colorado through ballot box biology, through an initiative. And it's funny, I've been doing some research on that now. The money for that initiative came through an organization in San Francisco that processes about $1 billion in funding that primarily goes to socially disruptive movements. And so this organization, this foundation that does this, was the fiscal sponsor for Black Lives Matter. They're the fiscal sponsor for one of the organizations that sponsored a bunch of George Soros, attorney generals.
Unsurprising.
And they're the fiscal sponsor for the organization that did the wolf reintroduction. So, like these anti-hunting and species-specific animal rights movements, they're not organic at all.
No.
Like people don't roll out of bed and say, "Oh, I need to stop my neighbor from hunting mountain lions." Like it's just not on. Like it just doesn't happen. Like people are just, these things are not organic, and that clicked with us. So, anyways, we got really involved in Colorado last year, and I think we refined and learned a lot about what messaging works in talking to the just really busy non-hunter that loves critters, and we can totally. We being the hunting community, we can own this space if we choose to. And we won in Colorado. HOWL was really involved in that. We helped nationalize that movement. And I think we're just I think we got some street cred out of that.
Yeah, you guys controlled the narrative, which I think was really key, because so much misinformation is put out, and it frankly lies are put out to for these ballot box initiatives.
Yep.
It's just false. It's not science-based.
No.
And so you guys were I was following it closely from a distance, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was watching the narrative that you guys were pushing.
Right.
And it seemed to kind of supersede what was being put out.
Yeah. The propaganda that was being put out in Colorado to support this mountain lion hunting ban, which really it's an attack on all hunting, because mountain lion hunting in Colorado is one of the most regulated and well executed hunts in North America. Like they've literally brought the mountain lion population there from 200 or so in the state to over almost 5,000 now.
Wow.
Through 60 years of regulated hunting. So
I thought hunters were killing all of them.
Right. I thought we were just out there slaughtering them all. And that was the propaganda. So you've got this really well-regulated hunt that's been really successful for the ecosystem, for the species involved. And, they're using these slogans like, you're going to eradicate them. You're going to, it's a trophy hunt only. They just chop the head off and take the hide and leave the meat on the mountain. They just make up these caricatures of what they think will spin well in the non-hunting space, and they're all lies. Like they're straight up fabrications. And I think oftentimes these species organizations, the anti-hunting organizations, they'll plant their flags so far on the extreme to get attention, to get the attention of a potential follower, that if we reflect that extreme, like if there's a mirror and we reflect it, then we're also on the extreme end, and we fall into this trap we become the caricature that they're trying to promote. Mm-hmm. And we realized early on that we need to not be that. Like we have to be, and because we're very few modern hunters really like want to or eliminate any of these critters. We want them managed. We want the prey species successful. Mm-hmm. We want to be management and opportunity. So we don't need to be the extreme end reflection of that, of where the anti-hunters put themselves. So we found that middle ground of how do we talk to the average person that doesn't hunt. They don't understand it's regulated. They don't understand we're eating the meat. They don't understand that there's opportunity based on abundance and success of the wildlife. What are their goals? Oh, their goals are that they want to know the critters are okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, me too. Like, hey,
there's commonality.
We have the same goals as most people. And so if we can start talking in terms that resonate with them, and it ain't my heritage, like Holly doesn't care about Mike's heritage, I can't just say, oh, it's my heritage or I pay for it. Like that's entitled. So we have to figure out like, what are their goals? Their goals are that the critters are okay. Okay, good. We have the same goals. Now, how's that work? Regulated hunting makes it so that the critters are okay.
And the North American model, people don't understand that.
Right.
So they don't understand that our dollars support the conservation.
Yeah.
So if you took away all hunting dollars across America,
be a lot of biologists out of jobs.
Exactly. Research would go away.
I think that's the argument that you can use in this particular situation is like the same argument you can use in California for our bears. Mm-hmm. Is because if people who are just like you said, it's the non-hunter. Mm-hmm. They're getting these ballot box initiatives that are like, oh, we need to get rid of bear hunting. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept, and it's like, okay, that sounds good to them. Like, oh, bears are so beautiful, and they're whatever. Why would anyone
right.
hunt them? And obviously, I think they're beautiful too, but they also taste good. But the thing is like, if they could see the conditions that we see. Mm-hmm. These bears being skinny, their bones sticking out, mange, like they're so overpopulated and so dense in some areas that the competition is so steep that not only are the bears doing bad stuff for bears, but they're also doing bad stuff for lions because they're stealing all their kills,
right? And
then they're killing all the deer fawns off, and it's just like it's crazy. So if we could use that same logic, and it comes down to dollars a lot of times, but we could make really compelling ads, of showing bears that are in dire conditions and being like, let's help these bears. We need to reduce the populations. We need to get them, all the stuff that we need to achieve through hunting.
Yeah. Yeah. And if people want the critters to be okay, is there such a thing as too many bears within an area? And the answer is yes, there is such a thing. Because like you said, the fawn recruitment of the prey species, the ungulates, is really low, and so the bears are crushing the fawns. And I actually think, there's a debate about how many mountain lions are in the state of California, and nobody really knows. Mm-hmm. And there's an agenda on the mountain lion protectionist side to say that there's not enough mountain lions. There's also kind of a logical train of thought that if bears could go from 20,000 to 65,000 in the last 30 years with just a tiny bit of hunting, and mountain lions haven't been hunted at all in 40 years, there's no way that it's the same numbers it was 40 years ago. I don't know. We don't know. There hasn't been, because mountain lions aren't hunted, there's very little science being done to manage the population or know what the population is. So we don't know how many mountain lions there are, but I actually think it is possible that mountain lions are getting their butts kicked in California because there's so many bears.
Yeah.
And if you're a mountain lion advocate, the first thing you should be saying is we need more bear hunting.
Yeah.
Like if you're, I've put this challenge out to the Mountain Lion Foundation. I had lunch with the executive director for the Mountain Lion Foundation a couple months ago. And I'm like, look, you guys are focused on mountain lion success on the landscape. They're not acting normal. They're in people's backyards. They're out in daylight by the shopping center, by the school.
They're attacking people.
They're attacking people.
Yeah.
They're primarily subsidized by human provided food, in these urban interfaces. So mountain lions are not acting normal Like, why don't we focus on rewilding the mountain lions? How do we not push them? How do we push them back into the wild landscapes? And is there enough food for them there? And if there's not, why not? Oh, because bears are kicking their butt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so at that point, we need to say, hey, mountain lion advocate, which lever do we pull?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What levers can we pull here? And one of the levers that we need to pull is regulated hunting of black bears in California to get more harvest, zone-based harvest quotas. So where there are too many,
right,
we can bring that number down with the methods of take that make it possible, which is spring hunting and using hounds. Mm-hmm. And spring hunting we get through the commission using hounds. That's legislation that's live as of today in our legislature to bring back the use of hounds to pursue and hunt bears and harvest bears in California.
One thing that's always bothered me about anything with biological moves, you try to build a building downtown, right? A house, whatever. You have to have an environmental impact study done. It's a requirement. Why don't we have to do that? So you reintroduce wolves on the landscape, right? There's an impact there. You create legislation, or not legislation, you create rules and regulations around bear hunting. The population explodes. There's environmental impact.
Right.
We haven't done a deer population study since 2017 or 16. Is it the last?
I don't know. It's outdated, and the regs and zones and quotas or tags haven't changed in my memory.
Like, these aren't siloed things. Bears are not a silo. Mountain lions are not a silo. It's all connected.
Yeah.
In the biology of the forest. So why aren't we studying the impact of each of these moves? Like, I've never understood that.
Arguably, there are people studying it, in the California Fish and Wildlife, right? And we've got a bunch of biologists in the field, but the disconnect, I think I may be mistaken here, but a lot of times I've actually spoken to biologists personally that have said, especially a couple that were retired, that have said, we do study it all. We've got the numbers. Mm-hmm. We provide the numbers. Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, cool numbers.
Yeah.
Status quo. And it's like, whoa, hang on. Because the commission's not listening.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of people want to fault the department. There's some really good wildlife managers at the department. But we don't see what they're really thinking and what they want to say, because if they said it, they'd get fired.
Sure.
And so then why is that happening? I think at the top of the department, we have a very politically driven bureaucrat who is like most of the leaders of California bureaucracies, very politically motivated, and not necessarily results-based, outcomes motivated. And so I think it won't take much change at the department to see a completely different day. It just takes a couple head count to change over at the department, and we could see a completely different outcome. But the California doesn't manage. We don't manage for ecosystems. We manage. I think they're very focused on single individual species. Like the new deer management plan is due out this year, and it will be really interesting to see how much does it talk about the fact that heavy competitive pressure, heavy predatory pressure from mountain lions, coyotes, bobcats, bears, and wolves are driving very poor outcomes for deer. Like, will that document that talks about deer address all of these other pressures that are making it hard for deer to be successful on the landscape in California? If it doesn't, then I'm going to say it's been edited.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of dishonesty. There's just a lack of intellectual honesty there.
Yeah.
Each of these documents, the bear management plan talks about kleptoparasitism from mountain lions. The bear management plan talks about how bears steal food from mountain lions. The bear management plan talks about how bears are just crushing the fawn population on the western slope of the Sierra Nevada. So those linkages are being made between deer and mountain lions. Like the deer plan really needs to talk about all these predators that are really making it hard to be a black-tailed deer or a mule deer in California.
I think even if it does, though, I mean,
what's the output?
Yeah, but at least that gives people like HOWL grounds to really advance our agenda and be like, hey, the science is right here.
Study, yeah, the bear study I thought was really well done.
Yeah,
the report, and it's driving the next steps of legislation.
We hope so. So here, I'm glad you said that. We hope it's going to drive the next steps of legislation. One of my concerns is that bear management plan has not been released officially yet. We've seen the draft. We provide feedback on the draft of it. The CDFW got together with all the NGOs, all the conservation organizations, all the anti-hunting organizations, got together with all the different stakeholder groups in November, December, and said, hey, we've done our update. You brought these questions to us. Here's how we've addressed those questions, and now we're putting the final plan together. So here we are, like 4 months later, 3 months later, since the final plan was done. It's been peer reviewed by other departments, Oregon or Colorado. Other agencies have done peer review, and it's basically sitting on the executive director's or the director's desk for the department. And my concern is he may sit on that plan as this legislation is being pushed through. And if the elected leaders don't have that plan to reference those studies and that proof, that data that shows mountain lions are having a hard time because there's too many bears, deer are having a hard time because there's too many bears, hunting sustainably is completely doable with more harvest, all this stuff, then our electeds won't have the information they need. And my fear is that plan is being sat on to prevent a good outcome for this legislation. And I think that's really a problem.
That's so subversive.
So
I could be wrong, but I want to be proven wrong.
Yeah,
I'm wrong.
Yeah.
The next step in the process is how do we get those people out of there?
Yeah. Yeah, now we're getting into politics. Now we're getting into California politics.
Put a big fat target on the back here.
Yeah, no, we need new leadership in so many ways. This is ecosystem, like all these fires, right?
Yeah.
All the fire, 3-4 decades of don't cut a tree down, don't cut a tree down, don't do this. Leave the shrubs as they are. Leave it. Everything that grows from the ground needs to be left as it is forever. This I call it snow globe management. Like the idea that we can just walk away, step outside of the snow globe and see everything settle in place. Well, that's how we got 5 years of million-acre fires. That's how we got the fires in LA. Snow globe management doesn't work.
No.
And our wildlife problems that we have right now are the result of snow globe management. Like we're just this idea that you can just walk away and look at it from outside and have it all be okay is wrong. And so that's the message. We need to talk to everybody about the fact that these ecosystems don't just heal themselves, not within our time frame.
Right.
I've
personally talked to people that said, I don't like the word management when you're talking about wildlife. We shouldn't manage them. They're wild. They need to live on their own and do their own thing. And it's just like part of their brain is just like not connected to the issue, which they just have no knowledge of it. I guess the fact that it's like humans are here.
Yeah.
So and we've been here.
Wildlife has to be managed around us. Like
right.
It's different.
I don't think they understand that humans, maybe it's participation. Like humans have been participating in the ecology of the natural world in North America for 20 or 30,000 years.
Right.
Like I don't think that the humans that were on this continent 1,000 years ago, they created, they had families, they had communities. I don't think they allowed wolves and black bears just to walk through their settled areas and take whatever those animals wanted to.
Yeah, right.
Like those critters were fearful of those human settled areas because they were competitors. Like, for the humans, the wolves and the bears, there was a lot of respect. There was love and adoration, just like we have adoration for bears, but there's also respect. And if one of those apex predators walked into one of those human communities, it was going to die.
Yeah.
It was going to have 6 spears, going through the back of its spine and liver and all that. And then they were going to eat it the next day. And so when they say we shouldn't manage, they don't understand. They've got a very short time, their lens that they're looking through of our existence and our place in nature is incredibly short. It's a very short time frame that they're looking at. And I think we just have to have a conversation like, hey, so when exactly do you think the timeline was that we stopped being participants in nature? Can you answer that for me?
Yeah.
Was it 1972? Was it when the iPhone came out? When did we become the aliens that aren't part of this earth?
Yeah.
So let's talk about this legislation.
Well, before we do,
okay,
I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this because,
okay,
we were on a webinar last night.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about that. Before we do, I want to ask you a question. For all the people out there that might be like, there's no hope here. Do you, as the boots on the ground working on this stuff, do you see light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, I do. I don't know how long that tunnel is, though. And I think how long that tunnel is up to us to define, actually. Going back to the average non-hunter and the messaging that they've got in their head to think that humans shouldn't be managing wildlife.
Right.
Again, they don't roll out of bed in the morning thinking, mountain lion hunting's bad, bear hunting's bad. They've been fed information strategically and intentionally by organizations that actually do want to take humans off the landscape, that do want to, at an ideological level, stop hunting. They've been fed that over the last 20, 30, 40 years. We can choose to do the same thing. The thing about it is our stories are true. The data behind the stories of regulated hunting is good. And so if we can choose to invest our energy, our resources, and just really our thought process on this to shift that paradigm, we can shorten that tunnel up. We can pull that tunnel in to be, years, not decades. And so I really do think that there's light at the end of the tunnel. People are waking up to the fact that, maybe we should manage the forest. Maybe we should allow some tree cutting and some mastication in forest management to prevent these forest fires. People have to have the right to become smarter.
Yeah.
And we as hunters, we can acknowledge, there was a time where hunting was very extractive. Market hunting almost took all the deer and the bears off the landscape in California. Commercialized market hunting. In comes conservation-based hunting, the North American model. So I'm rambling.
Well, I
think the point is that we can shorten. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. We need to figure out how to do the messaging to talk to the non-hunter, the non-participant, in a way that tells them that their goals for wildlife are being met through regulated hunting and management or human participation in the process. Their goals are being met. And when we do that, they align with this. I think go back to Colorado. Everybody said, at the shows, the Hunt Expo and SHOT Show and Wild Sheep Show and all these shows last year, January, February, March. Colorado's going to lose again. I'm like, no, I think we can win. There was an assumption that we were going to lose because the average voter doesn't mountain lion hunt.
Yeah. Right.
The average hunter doesn't mountain lion hunt. So where they sell 3,000 to 5,000 tags a year for mountain lions in a state of 6 million people or 5 million people, who's going to come to the aid of that tiny little niche group of a niche group, right? Well, it turns out that 1.7 million people, I think it was, voted in favor of mountain lion hunting.
It's amazing.
And they didn't vote because they think, I really want more people to kill mountain lions. They voted because they wanted to make sure that CPW had the tools in place to do good wildlife management based on science.
Yeah.
And that's the message that we need to build and really deploy broadly.
The key to any social change is education. That's the first key is education. You got to educate people.
That's why I think a lot of the existing NGOs in our space get it wrong, or just there's a lack of effort.
Or it's not their focus, or it's not really what they're trying to do.
They're focusing on our community, which is great, but I feel like something HOWL's doing different, especially with like the hunting is human and different messages, is like we need to open the doors and like talk to these people. Because if the general public is re-educated, I mean, it's going to take dollars is all it comes down to. We need the dollars because it's like you said, these companies, these, random funding groups, right, that are funding these initiatives for taking mountain lion hunting off the landscape. We need to do the same thing. We need money to promote our message, our agenda, and say, hey, this isn't as you've assumed. Or hunting is good.
Yeah, and the money goes to creating good content. Takes time and people with skills and resources to put together a good 30-second reel. And then even if that was free to create that 30-second reel or that message, that billboard, you got to deploy it. Like you got to deploy it strategically and get it in front of people over, many times over an extended period of time. And that just ain't free. And so we as a community, we need to decide, do we want to start having that conversation with those folks? I'm starting to reuse and really, share the idea of relatability and relevance. We had R3, which was to recruit, retain, and reactivate more hunters. People are like, I don't want more trucks at the trailhead. I don't need another 10 people out in my duck field, where I'm waterfowl hunting. So that kind of fell on flat ears. Like, man, I can't get tags as it is. I don't want to R3 more people into this. But R3, even if it worked, we're never going to get enough voters out of it to control and really influence anything. So we really need to have. It's my R4 and R5, and I didn't come up with this, but I can't remember who I'm stealing it from. It's relatability and relevance. The relevance is, that person wants critters to be okay. If what I'm doing helps them get their goals met, then I'm relevant. And if I can share relatable stories, like I love that animal too. In fact, I went out and took pictures of 27 bears last year. I did harvest one, and we're gonna consume that. It's a great resource for us. But I love bears also. Oh wow! Now we have relatable, goals and stories. And so we have to focus on that.
I think a lot of people are shocked to know when I talk with landowners or potential, hunting spots or just people in public, they're shocked to know that I'm like a wildlife enthusiast. Like I love photographing wildlife.
Right.
I love seeing wildlife. I'll just sit and watch a squirrel sometimes just to watch what they're doing, and people are like, oh wow, that's not how I thought.
You're not murdering everything in sight.
Right. It's and again, where does that come from? It doesn't come from within the hunting community. It doesn't come from people walking out into the woods at 4 a.m. with you and having, sitting down next to a tree as the sun comes up, listening to every creak of every twig and every bird and every squirrel. Like that idea of that we're angry at these animals, like we're angry at them. No, that idea comes from, again, messaging from outside to steer a sentiment and a perspective. And so I think we can completely win this. I think we can absolutely win it. Regulated hunting works for the benefit of critters and ecosystems. We're not the caricature that is often portrayed by the anti-hunters. So we just need to get that messaging out and start sharing more into that space and really just leading that dialogue. And I think that day is coming where the organizations that are they plant the flag so far at the end of the spectrum to protect a single species, to effectively try to make it so that humans can't participate in ecology and out on the landscape. They will become they are the extremists, and the average person will start to they'll lose trust in those organizations. I think a lot of people, if Humane Society of the U.S. says we need to stop bear hunting, most people will assume, they must be endangered. Like, why would HSUS want to go through all the work of making bear hunting illegal if the bears weren't endangered? It's like, well, because HSUS wants to control human behavior. They're more focused on that than bear success. People need to start to understand that they're being fed a line of propaganda and rhetoric that is not necessarily in the best interest of critters. And so as as people start to lose trust in these organizations, there'll be more friction amongst the whole community when those attacks come in. And then hopefully, a year, 2, 5 years from now, when there's a animal wildlife problem, people will look to what can regulated hunting do to solve this? Mm-hmm. What can methods of take that we thought we didn't understand, but we're starting to come back to do to help solve this?
I think, and people who, and this is the separation between people who have knowledge or firsthand experience and people who don't, is, a lot of people who live in, rural or suburban rural areas, who are, love all the wildlife, bring them around, whatever, which we love all the wildlife too. Then all of a sudden, a mountain lion's on their back porch. Then the lion eats Fifi, and then the lion's looking through their window at nighttime. Those people are like, get a hunter out here.
Right.
This thing is going to kill everything we have. It's going to kill my kids. You know? And they're not wrong.
Right.
And so all of a sudden their perspective opens up and they're like, hang on a second. There's a resource that we can use, a tool that we can use to manage this resource. Let's do that. Because they see the firsthand, but 99.9% of people don't get that opportunity to experience like that. So we have to share that with them. Like, hey,
no, absolutely. So you mentioned the webinar last night.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
So HOWL hosted a town hall, and we had almost 100 people on it to talk about 2 pieces of legislation that are introduced in the California Senate and the California Assembly. One of them introduces a pilot program to use hounds. Houndsmen will have to get like a permit. They'll have to do some advanced hunter education course to demonstrate that they know houndsmanship and they know the rules of the road in terms of pursuing hounds and whatnot. This is a tree and free. It's like catch and release hound hunting or mountain lion hunting, just for El Dorado County. And it's very laser focused because this is the county that's had the most depredation incidents in California in the last couple of years. It's where a young man was killed and his brother was attacked by a mountain lion. So there's a lot going on there with mountain lions. And so while it is a tiny little incremental step forward, it's a very important step forward because it identifies and acknowledges the value of using, pursuit of these apex predators to instill fear in them. So they start to avoid human settled areas. They start to avoid barking dogs more, things like that, try to push them back into the landscape where they belong. So that's SB 818. It's in the Senate. It's going to be a very hard win. The dialogue that we have, as far as we get it, we'll be able to have dialogue with more and more communities of California, though, about the value of this. And so it requires a 4/5 vote, both from the Senate and for the Assembly in California. And then it has to go to the governor's desk. And so it's got a very high bar for clearing the legislature. But the thing is this isn't hunting. This isn't harvest. This is really about management to provide more success for these mountain lions. Get them out of people's backyards.
Yeah.
Get them out of human communities. Instill fear in them so they start to avoid human settled areas more. And if we do that, heck, the mountain lions will probably be more successful. There will be fewer depredations, which means there's fewer mountain lions being killed under a depredation permit. There'll be fewer mountain lions being hit by cars. So if you're a mountain lion advocate, this is something you can support. And then the other legislation is to bring back the use of black bears, both for pursuit season, tree and free, catch and release bear hunting, where you pursue the bears with your hounds, you tree them and let them go. Same thing, conflict mitigation, reduce conflict, instill more fear in these bears in terms of fear of dogs, fear of humans, fear of human settled areas.
That'd be great in Tahoe.
Yeah, that would be great in Tahoe. It'd be so necessary. Tahoe is like a whole other. That's like a snow globe of its own.
Yeah, it is.
But also, what's part of this is it gives the commission the right, or it opens up the opportunity for the commission to establish hunting seasons with hounds, because The commission and the department, no, we need to harvest more bears. We have areas where there's too many bears on the landscape relative to other predators and the prey base that's there. So this puts the decision back to the commission and the department to use science-based wildlife management and proven methods of take to drive ecosystem success through harvest, through regulated harvest. And it doesn't mean it's going to be legal to run hounds and kill bears statewide with the use of hounds. It's going to be zone based. It's going to have a separate season. It probably have it. Maybe it has its own quota, its own tag system, maybe. So there's just going to be a lot of regulations that come out of this. But right now, the department doesn't have the opportunity to do this. The commission doesn't have the opportunity to do this. So this reverses the statutory or the legislative barrier that's in place right now for good management. And I think there is a place that we could win this in California.
Man, that'd be amazing.
And this is where I would say this is a national issue. And not that everybody in Vermont and Florida, and Washington State wants to come to California to run hounds and hunt bear. But this is a national issue because this would be one of the biggest reversals of a situation where science-based wildlife management was removed. It'll be one of the biggest repudiations of that species-specific animal rights, protectionism, preservation that goes counter to wildlife management and hunting opportunity. So it's a huge reversal opportunity for all of us nationwide to get behind.
It could set a precedent too.
And it sets a huge precedent. If we can do this in California, maybe we can bring, because Colorado, they lost the use of hounds. They lost the use of a spring season. Oregon lost the use of hounds. Washington lost the use of hounds for bears. When you tree a bear with hounds, the bear's not freaking out. Like, they're up in the tree hanging out. They'll just lay on a branch and be completely relaxed. Like, people assume that it's like this scary moment for a bear. Bears tree for all kinds of reasons. Bears tree when other bears are trying to kill them.
They do. I've watched bears climb a tree to eat.
Yeah. They'll climb a tree to eat. They'll climb a tree if they're being chased by wolves, and that's happening. Like,
it's kind of their go-to.
Yeah, it's their go-to, and so like pursuing bears with hounds is not traumatizing. It's a natural part of their how they respond.
Except for when they get a 30 cal behind the ear or something, that's pretty traumatizing
for about half a second.
For a blink. Yeah. So, anyways, I think there's a possibility here, and my biggest fear is that so many of us in the hunting community are so resolved or resigned to failure that we won't get into it, that we won't get into the arena on this.
That's exactly why I asked you about light at the end of the tunnel.
That's the deal.
Too many hunters fall into that trap of, it's out of my hands.
Yeah.
I can't do anything. It's going to fail.
All right, I have to quote something to you. I follow this guy on Instagram, E.T. the hip hop preacher. He's awesome.
What a cool name.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's like super motivational. Anyways, he was talking about something that his son did, and his son saw it as a failure. And he's like, "No, man, this is a launch. You launched something." And he says, pessimism blinds you to victory and makes you worship your defeats.
Wow.
Hope isn't naive; it's strategic. So, like, hope is strategic. It focuses your energy where it matters. And I'm like, dude, that's HOWL for wildlife. Like, that's it, man. And that's like, people literally in the hunting space, they worship the defeats. They're so invested in losing.
Yeah, it's true.
Because it's happened so many times that the only comfortable space that they've got is to say that they're going to lose again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, man. No.
It's like a hobby to talk about it amongst hunters.
Right.
Like, bro, did you hear? Yeah, I can't believe this.
Right.
And they're kind of like revel in it. It's like, what are you doing, man? Like,
yeah. It's so like, I think the start of the entire movement is, we can do this. And if you want to ask, okay, then how? Like, good question. How? Let's talk about how. Let's figure that out. But we can't get off the dime on any of these things unless we start with saying there's a place we're going to go and we can get there.
Yeah.
And my belief is that while those statements might have been either driven by desperation or delusion 3 or 4 years ago. I think they're informed by the fact that we've had successes.
Yeah, you're building on momentum.
We've had successes protecting bear hunting in California. We've had successes protecting twice mountain lion hunting in Colorado. We've had setbacks, but we also have seen through persistence in Washington State that we have a new governor, and the new governor doesn't want the circus that the last governor had down the commission. And if hunters had just sat back and relaxed and go, oh, we're just always going to lose in this commission, and we'd gone away in Washington State, then this governor that's come in might not give a damn about what's going on there. But because we kept the pressure there, because we made it a circus, we showed that there was a circus, a total clown show going on in the commission up there. We put eyes and light on that. This new governor doesn't want that. And so while there was a period of time where it looked like we were always going to lose, the fact that we stayed engaged, and I say we because there's hundreds or thousands of hunters in Washington State that were really involved in this. The fact that they stayed involved, they kept the pressure on. Now there's new leadership there, and they're like, I don't want that mess on my hands.
Yeah.
I'm going to fix some things. So all of a sudden, Washington State's going to come back to the center, be more moderate, be more focused on science-based wildlife management and opportunity, and we can prevail. So I think this thing about being invested in and literally worshiping the defeats, that's our biggest problem. 200,000 hunters in California, 200,000 deer tags roughly. Maybe it's 160,000 deer hunters, 30,000 bear hunters. Probably half a million waterfowl hunters. I don't know. There's a lot of waterfowl hunters. If we get out of the mode of, oh, we're going to lose, like, we can't be stopped. Like, if everybody just decided, I'm going to participate in this, I'm going to share this with my community, I'm going to put $20 into this and help fund those reels, talk to the non-hunting community, whether it's money or just mindset, if we get everybody to switch on to the decision that we can own this landscape and define where all these things go, we do.
Sure.
It absolutely happens.
Because we have, as far as humans, like, it's a giant cataclysm. What's that word?
Paradigm?
Whatever.
Chasm.
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 Yeah, cataclysmic
it's a chasm. It's a chasm.
It's a large difference between the amount of hunters and the amount of anti-hunters. Now, there's a ton of non-hunters, but people get this wrong. A lot of hunters do. Yep. They think, oh, well, the whole general public is... No. Most people are completely indifferent.
They're just busy.
Yeah. Then we've got all of us, and then we've got mostly lobbying groups that are anti-hunters, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, we can take them out, man.
There is zero grassroots movement in the anti-hunting industry. Like, when we show up to when there's a commission meeting to talk about, bear hunting, we'll go back to bear or coyote more recently. When you get a public input session and you have 20 individual hunters, it's Joe and Susie and Steve, and it's just individuals. They're like, I'm concerned about this. I value this, and it's important to me. The anti-hunting folks show up, and it's everybody, hi, I'm so-and-so with this agency or this department or this organization. They're paid to be there. They're all part of the machine. There's nobody rolling out of bed thinking, oh, I'm really busy today. I've got a softball team to coach, 3 kids, no mortgage to pay, but I'm going to go down and take away people's rights to hunt coyotes. Like, seriously, like, there's no grassroots movement.
Right.
There's no grassroots movement for that. And so we can completely dominate that landscape, but we have to get out of this mode of, as E.T., the hip hop preacher says, we have to get out of the mode of worshiping our defeats.
Yeah.
And look at it this way too. Every time a new bill comes to legislation, it's an opportunity to educate. Even if that bill doesn't make it, you're educating more people and more people.
Yep.
I mean, I look at it, a good metaphor is like Michael Jordan. How many times did he lose to the Pistons before he won a championship?
Yeah.
Every time he lost, he learned something more. He showed more people his skills or whatever. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're educating more people. Every time we go after this, every time we put a new initiative on the ballot, we're educating people.
Yeah, you can't get better at hitting singles and doubles by sitting in the dugout complaining.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need reps. Like, we need reps. We need times at bat.
Yeah.
And so, we don't know how far this is going to go. We know that we've got a senator in the Senate here in California, an assemblywoman here in California that were willing to put their name on legislation, and that's more than happened last year. Mm-hmm. So that alone is a step forward. And now we can start having the conversation with more people about why this legislation is good for animals, it's good for ecosystems, it's good for human communities.
Yeah. And I think something that a lot of people don't realize is that in the sphere of politics, elected officials are very concerned about what groups of people are saying. Mm-hmm. And that affects their relationship with constituents and everything, right? So if you have a loud group of people, this is how a lot of people on the left have won a lot of issues.
Just really loud.
They get a loud group of people together.
Right. Yep.
And elected officials go, hold on, this is going to look real bad for me if I don't cooperate with these people because they're all really loud.
Right.
That's what we were talking about last night.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, let's start being loud.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, and like, so that's what you were saying about reps and at bats. Like, we need to get in there. Even if we fail on these initiatives sometimes, if we're continually hitting this subject, then elected officials that are, especially newly elected officials coming in or trying to get elected, are going to start saying, these guys are really aggressive about this. Right. I'm going to be like, okay, yeah, I'm on their side.
Right.
And even if they're not, it doesn't matter because we can get our stuff through that we need to get through. But that's politics 101, squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Well, and we have to talk about this stuff like hunting and harvesting more bear off the landscape. We have to talk about this stuff today because we also have to talk about it in 3 or 4 months when spring bear season is in front of the commission. Mm-hmm. So do we sit on our hands and be quiet about it, or do we start educating the public about the value of harvesting more bears off the landscape through any method of take? Yeah. So we're doing that. These things, it's a series of events. It's a series of conversations and opportunities to steer people's perspective. There's no perfect moment like where we should wait for this thing to happen.
Just do it.
No, we need to be doing that now. We need to be in the mode of putting those seeds in the ground today, because like that, it's gonna come where we can get something out of it. We just don't know how far out it's gonna be. But if we're always waiting, we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So what can the listeners of this podcast do to help?
Yeah. Randy Newberg the other day said he wants us to get 1 million new members.
That'd be incredible.
And we're like, yeah, thank you, Randy. That's like the hardest pitch. That's the hardest sales pitch we've ever had. HOWL for Wildlife, we need members.
So let's talk about memberships. How can people get involved?
Memberships. So our basic membership, it's $30. Super simple.
Is that monthly or annually? Or?
$30 a year. Like that. Like you are a paid member of the HOWL Pack at $30. We have. There's a saying, you can pay more to get more. Mm-hmm. We do have some other membership opportunities in the $100 to even $300 range. We've got deals where there's benefits of discounts on our website for our art gear. There's discounts or included packages where you get like Onyx Elite for a year included. We've got this package with Elk Bros. They've got a huge library of content to learn how to elk hunt, become a better elk hunter. We've got their entire, I think it's their blue collar elk hunter, academy that they've got that's included in our Elk Bros package that we've got. There's just a lot of different ways to participate. If you want to support American Bear Foundation and HOWL for Wildlife, you can do a dual membership. So you click once, you buy once, you become a member of both for a little bit of a discount. So there's a lot of ways to access our memberships. It's howlforwildlife.org memberships. That's that. For free, anybody can test drive and use the Action Center. The Action Center is always going to be available for free. We want people to take action. We want that to be that's our secret sauce when it comes to advocacy and amplifying the right messages and the value statements to where decision makers have our information, our community's information about what we value. So the Action Center is always free. And if anybody's not taking action with us because they think that there's a requirement or some barrier to entry, just go there. Like take action with HOWL for Wildlife. Do that. That's the most powerful thing that we've got. But then fundraising, we're starting to hit a point now where we don't have a magazine. And we're not going to have a magazine because it's just not our space. We don't buy land. We don't buy habitat. We don't get into government contracts for doing habitat work. And so there are funding mechanisms that a lot of other conservation orgs have, like they can sell ad space. Mm-hmm. And you know, a gun manufacturer can say, hey, we support conservation because they're buying that ad. Really, they're just buying an ad.
Yeah.
You know, and that's good. That's for their business model. They got to sell their guns, right? We don't have those tools, but what we're starting to develop is a lot more collaborative, a lot of collaborative fundraising efforts with organizations that want to support what we do and want to bring their people's, you know, their followers, their constituents to Howl for Wildlife, and that's becoming really powerful. It's one of the biggest things we did last year. You know, PN Wild did this thing with us, and then Cameron Haynes matched the donation, and then I think Onyx matched the donation. It's like wild.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we're doing that, and we're being approached by people like Grizzly Brothers.
Yeah,
you know, and I think that's part of our magic is that's, again, that goes back to grassroots. Mm-hmm. That goes back to, you know, we're the new kid on the block. We're super nimble and flexible, and we want to work with everybody. Like, we don't really have guardrails and lanes. We've got a sandbox, and people want to get in the sandbox with us and play and work and drive this thing, then we're game.
So yeah, we reached out to you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our big announcement for this podcast. Yeah. We reached out to you about collaborating on our bear hunt giveaway. So mm-hmm. we did our first bear hunt giveaway last year. Had a great time, super successful hunt. And it's an opportunity for us. We don't do a lot of revenue generating stuff mm-hmm. at all. Maybe in the future we'll get into that space, but for now we don't do a lot. So this is an opportunity to generate revenue.
Yeah.
Because every dollar you spend is an entry into the contest.
Yeah.
So we thought, how can we roll this into conservation benefit? And the idea we came up with was, let's collaborate with HOWL, and proceeds go to HOWL for conservation. So now, instead of just your entries, you know, disappearing into the ether, your dollars, right. It's funding HOWL and the work that they're doing. So we're really excited about this.
Yeah.
When this contest launches, we're targeting May-ish, depending on a few things. There'll be some good merch.
Yep.
We'd like to collaborate with you guys too and put your merch on there too.
Okay.
The hunting is human. I love that phrase, by the way.
Yeah.
HOWL stuff. Maybe we'll come up with a cool proprietary logo that we can put on there. But yeah, it's an opportunity for you to fund what you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, let's work on on maybe a shirt mm-hmm. or something like that that's unique to this collaboration. That would be a lot of fun. And then, you know, you guys have some products coming out, mm-hmm. bear hunting focused. You guys are super into bear hunting. Our roots, you know, HOWL's roots go back to, you know, the attack on bear hunting and protecting bear hunting in California. We have a lot of affinity to bear hunting issues, and so I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to get our people together, get our, you know, I'd say followers or people that are aligned with us, you know, both organizations, to get them together to be able to do something that's really fun. I would love to win that hunt because I would love to go bear hunting with you guys. I know you guys are good at it, and I feel like I'm pretty good at seeing bears. But I see one or two bears on a trip. It sounds like you guys see several bears on a trip.
If it's good, more than that every day.
Yeah, every day. And so that's just, I think you guys are opening up the door for somebody to have a really good experience in the field. And learn some things about bears, bear ecology, bear behavior, and bear hunting. That
was our driving force behind doing this giveaway. It wasn't just to give a hunt away or to make money. It was to promote bear hunting in the state. Right. We see it as such a need.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about this. You know,
yeah, I mean,
meet the quota.
Yeah, exactly.
The quota. Yeah. That's how that.
Are you going to use that again?
Oh yeah. That's
okay.
That's
I love it.
Going forward quota for this giveaway.
The bear call is named the quota.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so it is public that you have a call coming out.
Yeah.
I want this call. I want this call as soon as it's out, because I want to go out into California wilderness areas, and I want to call in some spring bears.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna be doing a spring bear hunt in California at some point in the next 5 years.
Yes, sir. I love
and
it.
I want to get out there. I want to
for it.
sit down. I want to sit down on ground blind, get settled in up against some tree somewhere, looking over a drainage in early May, as there's still snow up in the mountains up high. And I want to call in some bears in spring. Because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get ready for that.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
No, I mean, it's deadly in the fall, so I can't imagine it wouldn't work in the spring. We've actually never called them in the spring because we just hunt California, right? So we hunt California bears and we hunt them in the fall, and that call is deadly in the fall. And the fawns are even a little older at that point. Actually, it's like kind of summer, basically. August is when our archery season is what we're calling them. But it's worked into rifle season, and I can't imagine it wouldn't work in the spring. So, I mean, it's triggering that response.
See, we should go out. Maybe we should go out and actually do a little like spring scouting trip.
It's on our agenda.
Record some video, get some spring bears called in.
Yeah, that'd be a blast.
That would be a lot of fun. That would be neat. Meet the quota. Maybe we call up on a shirt that's a meet the quota shirt, something like that. And about this call, it sounds like you've talked about it before. I'm new to it. Proprietary sound, construction, reed design. Like, what's going on about this bear call, the quota?
Yeah, I mean, you can, as a California guy, you know why we named it the quota.
What's special about it?
So we've used calls obviously for years, but there was just things here and there we wanted to change about those. So we had this idea, because we had a lot of people ask us, what call do you use? So we had this idea, let's make our call that we use with the sound we want for bears based on our experience. So we started with a drawing. Ben sketched it up on a piece of cardboard. That was what, October?
Yeah.
That was
Happened
October.
fast, man.
Yeah, it was fast turnaround. October, and we are in the final stages of engineering right now. We've got production lined up.
We've already been testing prototypes.
Yeah.
Basically, the call isn't dramatically different from other fawn distress calls that you can get on the market. There's some unique design features on it that make it pretty different and looks really cool.
Okay.
But also there's a certain tone that we've kind of dialed in.
Yeah.
That seems to really draw them best. And so we've been working with a reed manufacturer. They're actually perfecting the reed right now, so hopefully we don't have to tune every reed. We can just get them from the manufacturer exactly how we want them. And we've been kind of refining the call and internals and getting everything dialed. But it's a particular fawn sound that I've had to create with an elk call.
Okay.
A cow elk call that I learned, because that was the only thing I had in my pocket one time we were hunting.
Yeah.
I didn't have a bear call, and we were backpack hunting at the time, kind of in a wilderness area, and we were hiking back toward camp, and we spotted a bear, and I happened to have an elk call in my pocket from elk season.
Yeah.
And Clayton's like, well, let's try it. So we call this stupid bear, and he shoots it. And we called it into 25 yards or whatever it was. But then I started playing with that elk reed, and I was like, man, I can kind of make a sound here that haven't been able to really make with other, distress calls.
Yeah.
So then that kind of evolved into let's make our own call.
Yeah.
And here we are, and I'm excited about it. It has the exact sound we want. It's deadly. That sound is deadly on them. So
cool.
It's going to be cool. It's going to be a really cool call.
Yeah.
So.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's all going to launch at the same time, hopefully, if everything goes well. I don't want to promise something we can't deliver. It's depend on the production timelines and stuff, but we're looking at dropping the call, the video from last year's hunt, which is super fun, and launching this year's giveaway at the same time. And big shout out to Lodi Archery, Don, the owner of the shop. We talked to him. That's where I bought my first bow. I've known him for years. Super cool guy. He's building out a full bow build, a Hoyt RX8. Unless the winner is left-handed, then it has to be a different one, but we'll cross that bridge. But ideally a Hoyt RX8 or equivalent, fully built out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, rest, arrows, quiver,
Sight,
everything, sight, fully
Yeah.
built. He also talked to his vendors. We're going to get a 10x42 set of binoculars from Vortex,
Okay.
the Viper HDs. Talked to Drew at Tricer. He's putting in a tripod.
Wow.
So, I mean, this prize package, we're up in the $4,000 or $5,000 range.
Yeah, and somebody gets to do a little buddy hunt with you guys.
Yep.
When go back to last year, so this guy that hunted with you guys last year, this was his first big game animal harvest, right?
He had hunted birds a few times. So when we called him, he didn't even own a bow.
Okay.
We called him in what, May? I think it was.
Or June. It
was
not
Did
far
he
before.
know what he'd entered?
Yeah, he knew he entered. Super nice guy.
But you enter contests and you're like, I'm never gonna win that.
Yeah,
You know, this is, but that's cool.
Name's
Absolutely.
Nate. You'll get to know him on the film. But
Yeah.
So we gave him a call. We're like, hey, you're the winner. He's like, no way. I better go buy a bow. So
Yes, sir.
He went and bought a bow, started practicing, and that was in, like I said, May. August, whatever it was, the 20th, give or take a day or two, he shoots his first big game animal.
That's amazing.
At 16 yards.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it was a blast. That was the first time, we're not guides, obviously.
No.
That was the first time we'd ever taken anybody out that was new like that.
Yeah.
And coached him to a kill,
Right.
to a harvest.
Yeah.
And like seeing, it's a visceral reaction that you get to see.
Yeah.
That's where like the hunting is human.
Yeah.
You get to see that.
Yeah.
It was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And it's not a bloodlust, it's a reverence for the experience, for the animal.
Totally.
You get to see it.
Well, I mean, think about this. Like, and then we're kind of getting off topic again, but it's really exciting to talk about.
It is, yeah.
How many other things in like people's normal lives, right?
Right.
Are they going to be going on like an adrenaline high?
Right.
Like
Hands shaking.
I mean,
and-
even
Oh
a
my
lot of times
gosh,
when people
yeah.
are in combat and they're getting shot at, they don't get that much of a reaction.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and it's like you can still keep your cool. Like you shoot this bear, we call it in, the guy shoots it, and he is like
Just-
in another place,
just
like
shake- yeah.
psychedelic zone.
Yeah.
you know, and it's like that is incredible. You know,
People don't understand that. I think there's some people that are scared of that. Like they're scared of that level of humanity. But people, like you said, it's not a bloodlust. There's an experience that it's woven into our DNA.
Yeah.
To respond to it, to pursue it, but it's so different than anything that the anti-hunting rhetoric would ever present.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I relate to his experience a little bit because my first big game animal kill harvest was a very large bear. And I was like, but 4 years in of trying to get on something successfully. And so, yeah, when I told people that my first kill was a bear with a bow, they're like, what? But I was like 28, 30 yards, I think. 16 yards called in. So on the ground, probably.
Yep.
That's super close.
And we stay mobile
so
when we're
exciting.
calling, so it's kind of like coyote calling. We
Yeah.
don't do any formal setup. We, get hidden.
Yeah.
Bears, their eyesight's not like deer's,
Right.
and they don't really. They kind of walk like this.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, when they're coming in the call, and then they're looking for you, and then they're like, "What's?" They're like put it in 4-wheel drive.
Sure.
And sometimes we'll have them. You'll see the film. They'll be running in.
Yeah.
Like
full sprint.
Yeah.
Galloping.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
The second bear that I took, it was running straight at me, and I'd spotted it. I'd just gone out to like hike along a ridge to find a creek or a seep to get some water out of, and I'm hiking back towards my camp, and I'm like kind of on a little bit of a saddle or a shoulder of the mountain to where there's a clear area, and then to my left is forest where the slope goes back up and it's more densely forested, and I don't know, that's maybe like 100 yards to my left, and I'm just walking along, and I look over there and I see the bear like cruising through the woods. So he's running parallel to me. She was running parallel to me, but in the woods. I'm like, let me give this a shot. So I pulled out a little, I don't know, it was a fawn or a cottontail or one of the distress calls that makes a big old wailing sound. So I start wailing on that, and bear kind of looks over at me and then keeps walking, doing his thing. And so I wail on it some more, and it's like, and finally it pauses, and it just turns into like sauntering in straight towards me. And I'm like, oh, cool. She's coming at me. So I'm wailing on it some more. And then there's a swale in the, an undulation in the landscape. And she kind of disappears into that swale. And I'm like, oh, shit.
She's gonna be in my
And
lap.
now I don't know. Yeah. So then I'm like wailing on. I'm standing there. I'm wailing on this thing, and then she comes out of that swell at a full gallop. I'm like, oh damn. She's like so there's like those times where like you can really think about it and decide, and there's other times where the situation decides for you.
Yeah.
And so offhand shot. It took a couple shots.
That's how it goes occasionally.
But wow, that was one of those things where it went from, because of the call.
Yeah.
It went from a very, average, uneventful 5 p.m. walk back to camp to like full blown rodeo in about a minute because of the call.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they can work.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun to have a call that you guys have, through your experience in the field, have dialed in something that's going to be unique, stands out, and is a really specifically for calling in bears.
Yeah.
It'll be a predator call, but designed specifically for that tone for bears. So
a fawn attracts anything in the mountains that eats fawns.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Coyotes, bobcats,
They all eat
bears,
fawns.
lions. They're all coming in. We've called in all kinds of stuff, but we designed it around the bears. That's what our intention is.
Yeah.
So it'll be marketed as a predator call to reach more market.
Sure.
But for our market here in California, we're going to definitely represent it as what it's been created as, a really effective bear call.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
the quota.
The quota.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Good deal. I'm excited about the collaboration and grateful for it because it takes the more that we can connect with people who kind of see the vision, see the light at the end of the tunnel, then the faster we're going to get there.
So we've laid out a lot of opportunities for listeners to this podcast to get involved.
Yeah.
Directly through you, roundabout ways through the giveaway.
Yeah.
Collaborations with other organizations you're working with.
Yeah.
So and talk about briefly like where these dollars go. What are the activities they're funding?
Yeah. Our tech costs a few bucks to use. The way we have our action center set up and our CRM and all that set up is unique compared to everybody else's action center. So there's that. There's time. I'm a volunteer. I'm a full-time volunteer. There's time aspects of it. But the biggest thing is that we want to be able to, especially for this issue in California, we need voters to talk to their electeds, and we need it beyond the 98 people that were on the call last night.
Yeah.
Like we need it to be 980,000 people.
Right.
I don't know, what is that? 10,
it's a small difference.
10,000 more. So we're 1/10,000th of the way, and the only way to get there is through scaling up messaging through the most efficient channels right now, which are primarily social media. We need to be able to place reels into Contra Costa County and Marin County and Orange County and Ventura County. We need to be able to place reels that are targeted to 32 to 54-year-old adults that vote. And all of those things take dollars.
Yeah.
And so we want to get the messaging developed and put it in front of them. And the more that we have, it's just fuel in the tank to do that. Last year in Colorado, I think that's what worked. It was talking to the non-hunting public about science-based wildlife management and how it's good for the critters. But doing that through, it got down to yard signs, which cost money. It got down to, bumper stickers and vinyl wraps and a lot of media placements. And so all of these things take resources. The first thing it takes, though, is a decision amongst our community that we want to get to that point of being the ones that lead the dialogue about hunting and conservation. If we don't decide that, then it ain't going to happen. Yeah. So the first thing is make the decision, see the vision, see the possibility, and start just doing whatever you can, whether it's amplifying the message, taking action, investing a couple bucks. All those things work. All those things help.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Cool, man.
HOWL for wildlife.org.
HOWL
Yep.
for wildlife, all spelled out.
HOWL for wildlife.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go there and spend money.
Go there and spend money.
That helps.
Yeah.
We'll take it. Yeah, we'll use it.
Well, thanks
Absolutely.
again for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
I don't think it'll be a year before the next one. I can
No.
No. And obviously, listeners to this, there'll be a lot more to come with this bear giveaway and all that. So we're excited about this collaboration.
Very exciting.
Thanks again, Mike. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Grizzly Brothers.
All right. We'll
Love it.
see you on the next podcast.